Why is he talking about sukkahs now? I'll explain. All my YouTube viewers. Yaakov Yomish. Okay. So, Yaakov, on Tfilas Geshem, what do we do on Tfilas Geshem? By the way, all my subscribers, I'm not responsible for the guy in the corner yelling that.
Should I turn the camera?
Yeah, macho right. So, in Tfilas Geshem, what's Tfilas Geshem? Anybody know? Mr. Cohen?
I don't know.
Well, close. Geshem. Talos on Pesach.
Okay.
Yeah. Tfilas Geshem is said on Shemini Atzeres, and we daven for Geshem, for rain. Now, why should Hashem give us rain? We go through the history of the Jewish people, and we mention different great people, different great things that they did, and in the merit of what they did, we should get rain. Okay? Go through different people. When it comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, it's the strangest thing that happens. When it comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, you would think, oh, the schus of Moshe Rabbeinu, he took us out of Mitzrayim, he gave us the Ten Commandments, he was the leader of the Jewish people. I mean, all these things that he did for us. That's what you would think you would say. Anybody want to guess? What aspect, what part of Moshe Rabbeinu's life does the Tefillah, the Ashik Lesson HaGadolah, the men of the Great Assembly, before our school, the original sitter, right? The great men, Ezra, Daniel, Nehemiah, Mordechai, they decided to put it in Tefillas Geshem. What? Anybody want to guess? Yeah, what aspect, what episode of Moshe Rabbeinu's life do we say that Hashem should answer us with rain in the schus of what Moshe Rabbeinu did? You would think, one of the things that I mentioned, giving us the Torah, taking us out of Mitzrayim, being the leader of the Jewish people, none of that.
Something to do with his anivas.
Anivas? With his being humble? No.
His mother putting him in the basket.
That's the greatness of his mother. That's not the greatness of him.
Water.
Well, water is the answer to this question. The answer is this week's Parsha. Anybody know?
I'm not aware.
What happened in this week's Parsha after the story of the red heifer? You have the famous story of Moshe Rabbeinu.
What does he do? He begs for forgiveness. I mean, what do you mean?
That's okay. That's in Pesach Kisisa. I assume that you're referring to by the breaking of the tablets. In this week's Parsha, we have the story of Moshe Rabbeinu being told to speak to the rock, and instead of speaking to the rock, he hits the rock. So that's why I said before, it's similar to water. Says the Tfilas Geshem, a very strange thing. Hashem, answer us. Al hasela hach v'yetzer menu mayim. That Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock and water came out. And in the schus of what Moshe Rabbeinu did, in the merit of what Moshe Rabbeinu did, we should be answered with Geshem. I don't know why not everybody in this base message is not standing up and throwing tomatoes at me. What I said doesn't seem to make any sense. Of all the things that Moshe Rabbeinu did in his life, you would think that it would mention, like I said, taking us out of Mitzrayim, being the leader, helping us, teaching us Torah, giving us the Ten Commandments. But no, we mention something which, according to all the Mepharshim, there's thousands of Svarim written about what the chet was. What was the sin? He should have spoken to the rock. He shouldn't have called us names. I mean, everybody has their own shot at what the chet was. It's called Chet Memariva, the Memariva episode. Moshe Rabbeinu was punished. He wasn't allowed to enter Eretz Yisrael because of that. So, is it an Aveira or is it a mitzvah? If it was a mitzvah, if it was a good thing that was saying that Hashem should answer us, and that's chus, why was he punished for not being able to enter Eretz Yisrael for doing this? And if it was a good thing, then why was he punished? And if he was punished, then why would you mention it? You would think the last thing that you would mention would be something that he did wrong. So don't mention anything. Leave Moshe out of the whole prayer. But don't mention something wrong. Very strange. So the simple answer is, it's not talking about this week's Pasha. It's talking about Pasha's B'Shalach. Like I mentioned before, when actually it was the first time where Moshe Rabbeinu was able to give us water.
He was what?
He helped us get water. And that is talking about this episode, not the one in Pasha's B'Shalach. Are we on?
Yeah, someone called me. So
okay.
That's what Artsville writes in the little bum when they quote the pasuk.
Very good. Artsville actually quotes the first
See
pshat.
which parsha it's from.
The first pshat that it's talking about in Parshas Mashalach. But Mati, what we want to explain is, if it's talking about this week's parsha where it's a sin, then why would we mention something that Moshe Rabbeinu did, which is a sin?
So we should mention what happened in Bishalach, which wasn't a sin.
So that could be the pshat. Yeah. So that's one pshat.
No, that's a question.
No. The pshat. No. It says ala salahach. It says this thing. The discourse of him helping us with the water. So some say that it taka means over there. Okay? If it means over there, I have no share. I'm gonna have to come up with something else to say for the next half an
It's
hour.
always about how to shoot.
And that's not what we're here for. We're here to say Torah. If that's what it means, like Shlomo said, look in the article, and then you know what it means. So that's the simple explanation. But we're not going to learn like that. We're here to be graduated into a higher level. So let's learn now. It's not talking about in Parshas Beshalach. It's talking about over here. And it's a sin. So if it's a sin, why would we mention it? Mati, you got it?
Not 100%, no.
Okay.
What I think I understood so far is that you related Morid
Moshe Rabbeinu Hashem.
to the hitting of the rock,
Right.
and then you're saying you're somehow trying to connect that to Bishalach.
Now, there's a tefillah called Tefillas Geshem, not the Mashiv Ruach and Moed Geshem in the regular Shmona Esrei. Like I said before, on Shmini Atzeres, we have a tefillah called Tefillas Geshem, and we go through and we say, in the merit of great tzaddikim, we should be answered with water.
Is that when we start saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So by Tefillas Geshem, by Moshe, it says that we should be answered in the schos in the merit of him hitting the rock. So I thought that was an avera. So some say, like Shmuel, it doesn't mean over here in our parasha. It means earlier when there was a mitzvah and he helped the Jewish people get water. But then we wouldn't have a shear. So we're going to learn that it's not talking about B'Shalach. It's talking about in this week's parasha when he did the sin. So if it's a sin, so why are we mentioning it in the tefillah? So I'll tell you a gewaltige pshat, a beautiful pshat from the Vishnitzer Rebbe, the Yitzchak Yisrael. That's what he says. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu Taka hit the rock? Hashem told them to speak to the rock. Why did he hit the rock? So that would come out of it. The rock.
Wait, him talking to the rock, something will come out negative out of that.
Correct. What would happen? A rock has no yetzer hara. A rock is not obligated to listen to Hashem. Now let's say Moshe Rabbeinu would speak to the rock. Hashem wants you to bring water out. Thou shalt bring out water. And the rock would bring out the water. Okay? Now let's say a person would do an avera. Hashem would have a lot to say to him. Hey buddy, look at the rock. The rock has no yetzer hara. The rock is not obligated to listen to me. The rock doesn't hear. The rock doesn't have reasons not to do what Hashem tells them. And you know what happened? The rock did what Hashem told them. So you, who have to listen to the Torah, who are obligated to me, how could you do an avera? That would be what's called in Hebrew a kitrug, something negative, an accusatory accusation would be made against the person. Why didn't you learn from the rock? It would be a kavachomer, futururi. I think it's an Italian word, right? All the more so, if a rock is not obligated and the rock does what Hashem tells him to do, so how could you, a human, not do what Hashem tells him to do? Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid of this kitrug, of this accusation to be placed upon the Jew. What midah does that display? That is the midah of Mesiras Nefesh, giving over your whole soul to save the Jewish people. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Mesiras Nefesh, caring about the Jewish people to the extent that you're willing to do an avera to defend the Jewish people. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Shmuel said before under his breath, but I heard it. The answer.
I'm thinking twice about it, but...
And it was the correct answer. It was the correct answer. That's your final answer, Shmuel, right? And that is the correct answer. Mesiras Nefesh. Moshe Rabbeinu cared so much. I'll explain it afterwards. He explained that he cared so much about the Jewish people. He didn't want there to be anything to be a cause of a kitrug, of an accusation to be placed upon the Jewish people. That look, the rock listened to God, so how could you do a sin? Why didn't you learn from the rock? So Moshe Rabbeinu hit the rock in order to dispel and to not negate this kitrug, the accusation that would be. Because you can't say, hey, the rock listened to what Hashem told him. No, the rock only listened because he was hit. So Moshe Rabbeinu didn't speak to the rock. He hit the rock in order to not have this accusation be levied upon the Jewish people. Now, though it was a sin, he was punished. But if you know the background behind the sin, and he was wrong. You know why he was wrong? Because we don't make cheshbonos. We don't make calculations. Hashem says to do something, you do what he's told to do. Yeah, I'm not here to judge Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm just saying, the answer to that question is, if he meant well, why was it a sin? The reason why it was a sin is because you don't make cheshbonos. You don't make calculations that you think you know better. Hashem says this is the way it is. Okay. That's why it was a sin. But what was the basis? What was Moshe Rabbeinu's thought process? Why did he hit the rock? I'll tell you why he hit the rock. But like I just said, he wanted to get rid of this special hardness that the Beis Din Shamayla, at the heavenly court, would levy upon Jews. He cared so much for the Jewish people that he didn't want there to be more harder for a Jew to be justified in his actions. That's Mesiras Nefesh. That is caring about the Jewish people. That is the schus that we ask for when we say that Moshe Rabbeinu should be managed Osher. In the schus of what Moshe Rabbeinu did, we should get Geshem. We asked, it wasn't Avera. Terry says, of course it wasn't Avera. And he was wrong. But what was the thought process? The answer is the thought process was the love for the Jewish people. There was Mesiras Nefesh. He did what he could to prevent there from being extra accusations being levied upon them. That is the schus that we daven for. That in the schus of Moshe Rabbeinu's Mesiras Nefesh, we should get Geshem. We should be blessed to get Geshem in the honor and the schus of all the great tzaddikim that we have.